when you read one of these ancient texts that um, points you back to your true self, such as the Yogasutra is, but also if you read um, actual texts of the Buddha, or if you read from Adi Shankara, what he has written, doesn't actually matter so much, but many of you I know have also been reading or studying. There is almost in the beginning, there's almost uh, a complete, like you don't even know what they are talking about. Like when you have never encountered um, these kind of teachings actually that speak about realization and that come from this realized place, it seems very strange. And it it is literally um, as if you're reading something from a different dimension or um, from a different space. Many people have the same when they read the sayings of Jesus, but even when you read Rumi, anybody actually that was realized, you will see how difficult it might actually be in our world to to come into touch even with these kind of teachings. And then there is the mind that often says, okay, these texts are really old. Some of them might not be from the culture in which you were born, but it isn't that. It is literally that realization is about you realizing your most essential nature and the degree of subtlety that this actually is often incomprehensible. And what comes from that space is often also incomprehensible because it doesn't fit in with the relative world and our ways how we usually place attention. Usually you place your attention on what pertains to this body-mind construct all day. What you're gonna do this today, what you're gonna do tomorrow, in a month's time, your family, what is happening to you, your job, your life. All this keeps the mind engaged in a certain manner. But what you want to discover as you want to realize yourself is what lies completely beyond the mind, the you that exists beyond the mind, the you that isn't entangled at all in all these endeavors. But because the mind is continuously so focused on these endeavors, there's rarely a time when someone actually places their attention on it. That's why when you look at teachings in general, even the teachings online available on spirituality, then 80% or 98%, actually even more, is about an empowerment, an actualization of this body-mind construct. So you're trying to change your patterns, you're trying to have a better life, you're trying to work with what you've been given. And then there is oftentimes some stage of the soul that people discover more of their soul, like a deeper inspiration for their life, a deeper soul's purpose, soul aspects. It is then more about ascending different dimensions, becoming more lightful, increasing your energy, increasing your spiritual powers, having more spiritual experiences. All of this at the end of the day is what we add on to this body mind construct, and what also has this relative importance. Obviously, it's not that you shouldn't care for your life or your health or your well-being, or you take exceptional care of yourself. It's all important. But what I want to tell you is that self-realization is so different. It goes completely opposite. You want to discover what you essentially are before the mind. You want to discover that in which this body mind appears, but which isn't this body mind. And as you know from all these other ways, or these ways that are usually offered, every time you discover something new about yourself, like you discover a soul aspect, or you discover whatever it is, it changes something about you. You become, as more momentum to you, usually you go deeper inside. But this is you go beyond anything that appears. And that's why in ancient days people became sannyasins. They retreated. The yogis retreated to the forest. The rishis retreated to the forest. The other yogis formed monastic orders, because also your attention needs to be a bit on this, also just vibrationally, like even to start moving away from this world of form. And it becomes very difficult, actually, as long as this enmeshment with this third dimension, or however you want to call it, is just the only thing that's present. It holds the mind in a certain pattern. It just continues in a certain way. And self-realization is, you're stripping yourself off of all the ideas, the labels, the meanings you have given yourself. You're discovering yourself as consciousness. You're discovering what is beyond the mind. It's a letting go, rather than another add-on to yourself. At the same time, it is what you're actually discovering is not boring at all. It is your boundless nature, your infinite nature, that which you cannot even fathom. The mystery cannot always, everything can be described, but it gets you in touch with your God self. It means that which isn't limited, which isn't bound to your mind, your patterns, your conditioning, what you have experienced, your culture, whatever it is, comes to the foreground of your experience. And with it also completely different connection to the peace and the love that you actually are, and to a more universality. So this Yoga Sutra that I wanted to talk about today talks about 7 stages of attainment. Again, be very mindful. As soon as we make these teachings, any of these teachings, whether that's the yogic teachings that we have, or whether it is the teachings of the Buddha, or whether it is any form of teachings, actually, if they become a dogma, and the dogma becomes what an identified mind actually perceives by these teachings, that these teachings are stipulations, sort of, that you can wrap your head around, then it might end up in a problem, because these teachings are all pointing you, they're all trying to point you to your boundless nature. There is no dogma in them. It is just when you read any of these texts, it is that someone from the compassion of their heart tried to describe to you what you are actually looking for in the terminology that was fitting to them in their time, in their culture, in that people would understand. That's why at the end of the day, all these teachings actually point you to the same boundless nature, to yourself being consciousness, being the divine, being one with God, however you want to call it. The essential the essential pointing is the same, but what they used as pointers, what they used as practices, what they found helpful, they themselves is different. And so also come from that kind of understanding. So the Patanjali here points uh, to 7 levels of attainment, 7 levels of grounding yourself into something, 7 levels in which you can understand yourself in a certain way. What am I? And then something comes up where the identity that you hold is continuously actually challenged. That's also what happens in this process, is whatever you still hold on to and want to cling to is gonna be removed from you. There is no more identity. But there are also these different findings that people can make on this journey. And Patanjali talks here about 7 levels of attainment, sometimes also called 7 levels of jnanam, or 7 levels of enlightenment. And that's also where you see how diverse, actually, always these teachings are, because depending on how much someone was still engaged in the normal worldly life and trying to talk to these kind of people about it, or it was more for people that were somehow part of the sangha, somehow part of a group that those teachings were shared. A lot of these teachings, also some of them secret, some of them only taught in smaller circles, all these kind of things. So Patanjali, actually, in this Yoga Sutra, he just mentions 7 levels of attainment. And also each one of these, similar to today, when there's always enlightened people, there's always realized people around, and each one also listens to one another and hears from one another, and has a certain assumption that people also know of this and that existed at a certain time also. So these 7 levels are actually not written out in the Yoga Sutra, but there's another text that's called Yoga Vasishta. That's another text by a yogi. And that text actually explicitly talks about these 7 levels of attainment. And the first level, the very, very first level, so you can look what sounds somehow gripping to you, or sounds somehow that you can find yourself in this. Also, when you are awakening, these levels are can be incredibly helpful, because your experience is gonna shift. Your There's different things that are gonna happen to you, and it's very nice, Many people will not be able to tell you what's actually happening to you, or what this is about, and to know that you are okay. This is okay. This is part of the process. This is part of what has been happening to many, many yogis and yoginis around the world, with that spiritual awakening, with a true awakening to what you are. We sometimes it is simple because it is already what you are, but if it gets trivialized, this kind of awakening, then we have to be very careful, because you're actually getting into touch with what is boundless, yourself being boundless. This is something that most people have maybe had a glimpse of, but not as that what they actually are, and what then weaves itself through your life, and is the predominant exemplum of what is happening. So the fast of these levels is called Shubhecha. It means a good wish. So it is sort of like the first kind of knowing that liberation or self-realization is actually possible for you. And that's so important in a world that always puts everything and everyone that is realized on a pedestal, or thinks that this is actually not even possible. Like it gets postponed. People look at the Yogasutra, they read a little bit, and then they think, yeah, this was possible for people in the past, maybe the yogis 2000 years ago. Maybe it was different then, maybe there was more silence then, maybe there was more possibility for focus on these kind of teachings. It is all possible for you, because you are already consciousness or awareness. It is just undiscovered. It's completely undiscovered and completely lost in translation sometimes even, but also just lost as a possibility that's possible for you if you are actually really interested in this. This is what it is. Are you actually truly interested in this? Then no. If so, then no. This is possible for you. You can still walk on this path. You can still always find out what you are. So don't ever become discouraged. If you want this, if you want to find this out, this is possible for you. And the second stage is called vicharana, that is an inquiry. It is you are starting to inquire what is actually the self. In whatever form this actually takes place then for you. You might read more, you might listen to a lot of these kind of talks, or non-dual talks, or talks about self-realization online on YouTube. And there is an inner process that starts happening, by which you actually experientially also want to know what is the self. And oftentimes this can also happen as you start witnessing. You start witnessing everything that arises, your perceptions, your sensations, your emotions. You're starting to actually see not them just like it's just this witnessing component that you're witnessing, but you're becoming aware, hey, there is this spacious awareness that I am. And from this spacious awareness, when I observe my thoughts, my emotions, my sensations, my perceptions, I see they come and go inside of this spacious essence, this spacious awareness that I am. And then you become more interested at some point, not in witnessing what is arising, witnessing emotions, but you become more interested actually, what is this spaciousness? What is this part of myself that is simply witnessing this? And then a lot of things can happen to you actually that happen with this inquiry of the self. Self-inquiry obviously is this inquiry. Who am I? What am I? What am I actually? But there's a lot of things that can become very clear to you in meditation. One of them, for example, is where do thoughts appear? All inside this spacious essence. You can see them coming and going. You can notice this grasping tendency of the mind. You can notice when it's difficult to detach from thoughts or from emotions or from sensations, that all of them actually also have a sensational quality. Like it is literally, you can, instead of observing, like for those of you where it's very difficult to witness, where you feel like very easily pulled into those mind streams or those thoughts or your emotions or your sensations, instead, you can witness the sensation of the thought, just the purity of sensations, almost like these amplitudes that you can witness. You can start to witness as you become aware that there is this spacious awareness or this consciousness, and there is what is perceivable. You become aware that this spaciousness cannot be found. You cannot pinpoint it anywhere. It is this boundless expansiveness that has no limits. All these things you will have to actually find inside of your awareness. You will have to like experientially find these are like little signposts, but it's so tremendous when what you take yourself to be all this life, when this whole card, this whole thing of cards starts to tumble, when you are actually becoming aware of the delusion itself. So this is the second stage where you start to do self-inquiry and you start becoming aware what is actually the self. There is also more understanding of it, both mentally, but also experientially. You start knowing this. You make it, you make it known again to yourself what you actually are. And then the third stage is called Tanu Manasa. It means that the mind starts to become less prominent. There isn't the through the meditation, through the inquiry, through starting to witness, is also letting go of this being being continuously in mind stream. Oftentimes people also become more silent. It also also physically, but also in general. It is just, there isn't so much thoughts. There aren't so many thoughts. Or there can still be thoughts, but not every thought is picked up and taken on to be you. Not every thought is going to be identified with. So the identification with the mind becomes lessened. There's less. You start remembering what you are, and the mind, there isn't the whole process of unconsciously being identified to a mind stream stops. There is more of an awareness of yourself, of awareness. You're becoming aware of awareness. And as you start to become more and more aware of awareness and become aware of the mind and all what the mind continuously suggests, but you can remain detached from all that. There's the fourth stage. It's called Sattvapati. It means that the clarity of what you are starts to shine. There is more and more a true knowing that you are nothing that appears, and that all that is continuously perceivable, the world of appearances, whether that is your mind body, whether that is your sensations, your emotions, your thoughts, other people, whatever it is, there is just this tremendous clarity that you are not found in any of this. And there's also an experiential clarity. There's really like the truth of what you are as awareness starts to shine. It starts to become much more dominant. The problem is that we are not, we aren't aware of awareness. We aren't aware of this boundless nature of ours. So Sattvapati, the clarity starts to shine. The boundless nature makes it starts to become really dominant. Really, like you have remembered yourself, and similar to any time when you have remembered something about this mind body construct, something that's really essential to you, at some point you become pati, bound by clarity. The clarity of what you are can no longer be negated, can no longer, there isn't, it is something that from the inside is so is so clear to you, and not just as this one time experience. It is really that you are looking already now, but you are looking from awareness all the time, and from awareness you just see this whole gamut of world that comes alive inside of your awareness. But you are so strongly then knowing where you are actually found, and you become bound by clarity, and you realize the self. This is when you know this, and your non-separate boundless nature becomes known to you as what you are. This is very often when people then also start to have unity experiences, because you are boundless, you are non-separate, and all arises within you. And so these unity experiences are not induced anymore by anything. It's not like people go on ayahuasca or this or that and have a unity experience. It is simply the shining of your non-separate nature. And a lot of like you start having this unity experience. It again oftentimes happens automatically. There isn't a conscious, a seemingly there isn't a seemingly separate entity that decides for wanting a unity experience. It isn't like this. It is whatever comes into awareness, whatever is focused on, is sort of unified with, starts to become unified with. You can have very, very strange experiences. You can touch a bottle of wine and feel like you are not opening the wine, you're not doing anything, and you feel the dizziness inside your body mind. You can touch a package of coffee and suddenly feel as if as how alerted you are. You watch a movie, but instead of being able to actually watch what is happening and what the characters are playing, you see what an actor, for example, what his main daily focus is. You have these kind of unity experiences. A lot of this isn't again this is also there is also often a phase in which you move back, you expand yourself back into your true essence, true boundless essence. It's all, and the mind actually has to catch up with what is actually happening. The mind has to interpret. That's why these teachings can also be so helpful to you. Just to know this is all normal. You are not separate. You are boundless. And these kind of experiences then happen automatically. Yoga Sutra is also such a good text for it because it actually talks about these different union experiences, these true experiences of unity when something is no longer seen as like even experienced, no longer as separate from yourself. It all appears inside of you. And then the the fifth stage is called asansakti. There is a true detachment. A, even when you have realized the self or have had a really pure glimpse, you will still have to be vigilant. Patanjali also talks about it. And it's also true, you still have to be vigilant. Vigilant, like again, because there's new experiences happening to you. Some of them very, very, very interesting also. And you have to discriminate yourself continuously, or at least for some more time, against all what appears, whatever it is. You are expanding yourself back. There's different spiritual experiences also that come in. You have to be very, very mindful. And so in the next stage, there's usually some form of detachment, a further detachment that isn't even generated necessarily again by some willing force, but by itself. And there is a detachment from the world of form. It's just it all gets seen as unreal, as not. Please don't misunderstand me. It is all important. It has its own importance. It isn't negated anyone's lives or experiences, but this essential unrealness of anything that appears and everything that appears becomes also then more seen. There's just this detachment. This detachment is growing. And this detachment also sometimes occurs naturally. It isn't that the person is trying again to be very detached from this world of form, but certain things are no longer you they're no longer taken up in with the same kind of mm, with this holding sense, this grasping sense, this construction sense. I'm constructing the world according to what I see. I'm constructing the world according to what I know even. I'm constructing the world to what is perceivable. All that is perceivable, this whole world, there is just detachment from it. You can become very, very withdrawn, very, very, very silent, very, very um, un unmoving also, just just uh, just not so interested, like really also out, like this can also happen to you. You just consciousness, your God self, your God essence that isn't dependent on anything that appears, takes you fully in, and you can be very, very aloof, very, very silent, very still, and very detached from this world. This is actually a process that is necessary because you you're just no longer found in all of this, and so is anyone else. Actually, your knowledge then also increases about what everyone else in truth actually is, namely the same. You might, your chance, like I mean yours, that you are watching this, is to find this out for yourself. This is also such a gift that you can give others. But it doesn't mean that anyone else is lower or that anything else is anyone doesn't have or is already the same consciousness. It's just that different people obviously decide for different things in this life, and that's all also okay. This is just that you will have a phase in which you are incredibly detached. And again, the mind, like sometimes the mind doesn't even notice this because there aren't so many thoughts. Sometimes the mind notices it and is actually also then maybe a bit questioning this or a bit shocked because you're much more detached to the world. Again, you don't enter any negative stream. It's very difficult to describe even these things here because then they get interpreted and it means you're less loving or anything like that. It's not like that. You're actually entering true love. You're entering the love that has no stipulation, the love that embraces all of this, but doesn't always also need to engage. This is what we are trained, that we need to engage, and we love in such a massive way, oftentimes our family members, our partners, our friends, that we would love to take away from them even things or pain or suffering or whatever it is. And there you also come to know that sometimes like you let people go through their experience, similar to letting people have their experience, knowing it arises from consciousness, from them, for them. Who are you to actually always have to place yourself inside and have an opinion even about whether that's good for someone, what they are experiencing, or bad? Again, doesn't mean that if someone asks you for help or care, you don't care. It is just you are entering a phase in which you are very, very, very detached. This can like if we would be living in India and then maybe you could be sitting somewhere and you're just withdrawn from this world. It wouldn't be such a strange occurrence, but obviously in the Western world this is a bit more difficult. But it's also usually happening for a lot of people that have realized that there is just this phase can be, and I'm saying to you, it can be years or months in which you are just more, you're just you're just in this. It just reabsorbs you. The and there isn't necessarily the say like this also wouldn't make sense, would it, to have the same kind of involvement. Then the sixth stage is called Padhartha Bhavana. And in this stage, you recognize also, so there's more of a coming together. You recognize that the self is all that there is, and that there is actually just oneness. So the first stage actually that awareness can take, that consciousness can take, that the first form, you could say, the first knowing, the first realization that you can have is the one of oneness, the one of that there is actually nothing else than the self. This is this both the self as the nature of consciousness, what you are, and everything that appears as its presentation, that are obviously necessary. So that's where this yogic path is so interesting, but also so necessary. Fast, you need to make this differentiation. Otherwise, people say, I have heard people say, well, if at the end of the day I know already that my expression is that consciousness, why would I even bother and make this whole discovery of myself as consciousness if at the end of it I also know that this is also consciousness, an expression of it? You cannot think this way because you have to discover, like, how much to put it in other words. It means I, as the person, because I, at the end of it, I also know that this expression is holy. I don't even want to know my God self. It's very different. There's a very different transcription happening once you discover what you actually are. And so the yogic path, that's where I started, right? The yogic path makes this like puts it to you. You have to actually become aware of experientially, says it in the first sutta, experientially become aware what is consciousness and what is matter. What is the world of perceivable? You have to actually separate these two. You have to realize yourself as what is not bound to, in the end, come back to this understanding of oneness. But this understanding of oneness, then also experientially, to see how the world arises in you, to see this oneness alive, to come to this, to understand, to have the love, to have realized the love that you are, and to come from that love, a different love, universal love, impartial love, different love. And that then also embraces these every expression, actually. This is an also when when what is better spiritually, or what is more enlightened spiritually, all this nonsense actually gets also seen as completely nonsense, because there is that what is perceivable. Yeah, that is what you can experience. There is what manifests itself, and there's consciousness. And one is your nature, and the other one is its expression. And its expression distinctly through you serves also all of consciousness. Again, you're non-separate. So whatever you like, I don't want to uh, put too much weight on you, but there is also a responsibility, an enormous responsibility on everyone. We see what displays itself as this conglomerate of consciousness at a moment of time, your own realization, your own inquiry, every time you witness your own discovery, your own knowing yourself, it changes something, it lifts something, it expands something, it does something. So always be mindful of the human mind's typical things. One is, I'm not worthy. I am not worthy. This is because I'm limited. Actually, also points you already to what is unlimited, so that you find this, because this other thing is just such a negative belief structure to carry. But also to know this, because you're non-separate, everything that you're finding about the true self, like, all these moments of complete aha, I'm actually boundless, or I understand now what is the world of what is perceivable. I understand it in my own meditation experience. All these things, they make it available to so many others, all the unity experiences, all what can be discovered distinctly through you, through your paths. I don't know what you have done before. You are plugging yourself back into the God plug, and the God plug. And whatever it was, it will be just expanded and highlighted, and given just a different oomph. Whatever your journey was. So don't this light that we all share, namely consciousness, is already what you are. And it is waiting for you to come to know. And the last stage is called Turiya. that we have heard also before already. When there is the talk about Om, it is silence. It is no longer to be in any form actually describable. And that's also what you are, no longer in any form describable. And all of us that are actually pointing to that self, we are all restricted. I'm restricted by words, by concepts. I'm trying to explain something to you that lies beyond the mind, and that is actually best also transmitted in pure silence, because it needs no concepts. Doesn't just there isn't just a concept about it, but it also just needs no concept. It just is. So all these 7 beautiful stages can be discovered as you. And those sages wouldn't have written it down if it wasn't available to you now. To recognize what you are takes only an instant, but to know I can be realized, I can be liberated. I focus my attention now on this. That's your choice to make. And every step of this discovery, as you are, independent of how separate you still perceive yourself to be, this will influence collective consciousness tremendously. So there's my hope also that many of you actually follow this calling. This is the deepest calling the soul actually has. This is the first primal calling the soul has, is to know itself, is to discover its oneness with God, its oneness with all there is. I hope that this has offered you some clarity today, and also that even if you think, oh, I haven't had these kind of, it's not happening yet, this or that, or, the ego mind starts to hope to find itself in a box. Kindly also always take all these teachings with what I said earlier, namely, what you're discovering is your infinite nature. It has infinite ways how this path can look like for you. There isn't a one thing fits all. It will be perfected for you, exactly as it has to be for you. And it also oftentimes demonstrates something specific to consciousness. There is this learning again, you're non-separate, there is a learning, there is a revelation. You are revealing. You distinctly then reveal what gets revealed for you. And that's so precious, and it will be so precious. And even if you never talk about it, it will be known. You will have opened something up inside of our collective conscious trajectory, or collective conscious discovery, actually. So this also bear in mind, and also bear in mind that there are different experiences also, one of extreme detachment and one of unity, that are also talked about and that are also just a normal outcome actually of what you are. Doesn't mean that they always have to happen again. Please, already here, cautionary tale. They don't have to happen. It is just as just oftentimes things that happen, and to know this, you are then you have to interpret. Your mind will have to interpret from understanding what you are, understanding non-separateness, understanding your boundless nature, understanding what you actually are in reality. But again, this last words, it starts with you knowing this path is also possible for me. Shopecha, good wish. It is possible for you. Are you game for this path? Namaste. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. Appreciate you listening. I appreciate you are learning. I appreciate you being here. Namaste.